Welcome back, everybody, to Coffee, Conversations, and Badasses podcast. This episode is going to be remarkable. It's about the tragedy that hit America on September 11th in 2001. And our guest, Jason Palamara. How are you doing, buddy?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. You know, that tragic day hit a lot of people, really actually hit everybody hard, the American people very hard. But it hit everybody a little bit different. Your experience on 9/11 is just remarkable. What were you doing on 9/11?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, brother, and thanks for having such important conversations, because I'm a firm believer on you never know who's hearing your story. You know, however maybe small that story might be to you, it could be huge to somebody else. So I appreciate it. September 11th, 2001, I was just a little bit over 2 months into my police career. I was in the police academy. So started on July 2nd, 2001, and not long after 9/11 happened. I was in law class with the rest of my recruit class, and there was some commotion outside in the hallway. Our instructor left. He came back in and said that we were all getting mobilized we all had to report down to the auditorium. I know I thought it was just a joke. Not a joke. I thought it was a training exercise. It wasn't as serious as it was being made out to be. We're in the academy, so everything was training. We get down to the auditorium, and I'll never forget that one of the first things that we were told that I remember was that all women and those with children were to stay behind. And with that, this is no way this is actually true. Thinking still it was a training exercise. That quickly changed to everybody. We all had to muster back up out into the hallway outside the auditorium. And not long after, we were deployed down to what would be ground zero. We were out of the academy, myself and my fellow recruits, for probably about a month and a half. If my memory serves me right. And every day there was a different post. We were recruits. We had no guns. We had no shields. We had our gray recruit uniforms. And I believe it was that night or the next day it was that night. I was assigned down to 34th Street in the Midtown Tunnel. So basically to help direct traffic. They sent us out with our recruit instructors, our academy class instructors. And I learned real quick why they had done that, besides us not being real cops yet. We were telling folks that were having their own stressful experiences, that they couldn't go here, couldn't go there. They were all dealing with their own trauma. And here I was in a little recruit uniform telling people what to do. And that it didn't meet so well with folks. And again, that's why our instructors were there. I guess basically to back us up. I remember distinctly somebody telling me that I couldn't tell them what to do because I wasn't a real cop yet. And I wasn't. Those were, yeah.
That's a wild spot to be in. For one, you're out there wet behind the ears, still kind of getting your feet wet in this new career, fresh out of the academy. And now you're having I'm not even sure if you even knew what the hell was really going on at that moment. Other than something bad's happened, this is my job, this is my post. And now you're dealing with New York people, which I've never dealt with, but I heard they could be, what's the word I'm looking for? Really?
Maybe.
Yeah, to the point. And, they speak, they're direct.
Direct is a good.
They're direct.
Yeah.
So how did you cope? How did you cope with, or how did you hear about what happened? How did that kind of transpire? Did you really know what was going on, or was it just the rumor mill?
No, we knew what was going on, but to that point, I grew up in New York my whole life, and I had never been down to the World Trade Center, not on a school trip, not on a family trip, nothing. So I had never been there. So I couldn't visualize or conceptualize what people were talking about. On top of that, I was thinking my own family. I was thinking of, when am I going to get to go make sure they're okay? Because remember, at that time, though the city was attacked, other things were happening around the U.S. So naturally, human instinct, you want to check on your own family. It was busy signal. When and if I could get to call them. So in the same time I was nervous and, scared. I have no problem with saying that. I was also excited. I was out there. We were it. So it was a bit of both worlds.
Yeah, that is excitement that's wow. I know when I first saw what was happening, I was on a ship. I was on the USS Nimitz. I was completely dumbfounded. I was on duty and went up to the division officer's office, and TV was going, and we're just standing around watching it, and we're looking at each other just going, what in the hell is going on here? What are we about to do? And being there in New York, I couldn't imagine just being boots on the ground in New York and experiencing with it. Not only the experiencing with it, but the people who you were directing probably away from the city, were they trying to get to people who may be affected by what happened?
I'm sure there's many reasons. There's many answers to that. I know I had the 34th Street and Midtown Tunnel, so right, everyone trying to get out of the city back to Long Island and the boroughs. What was surreal for me in the days that followed were seeing, and not long after it happened, I don't remember exactly when I started seeing this, but it was soon after. It was marked RMPs, marked police cars from as far as the West Coast, states, cops from all over the place, to see them inside the city where all you would see is the NYPD cars. And you now saw LAPD cars. You saw state police from all over. That was surreal. Seeing everybody converge into the city made it was really intense.
How was the feel for the community? Like, it happened, and did they come together and saying, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to help first responders, no matter where it was at?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I started my police career with everyone loving us during 9/11, and I left the exact opposite in September of 2020. It was quite the different beginning and end. But yes, everybody. That's one of the things I've taken away from that time, not just that day, but the days that followed. And it was the love the city showed. Everybody came together. And isn't that the case when tragic events happen, and it's too easily forgotten soon after? But yes, everybody, we were favorites then. Maybe not so much the years that followed.
No, that's the years to follow was something shifted, and I'll ask you about that later. I could imagine. Did you get so you're directing people out of the city then? So hey, come on, let's get out of the city. Let's go. Move it. And I'm sure other people were hearing what was happening, but not knowing really what was happening. Because as I was watching this, and you're watching this live, and then you just see the first tower collapse. Just collapse. And then soon after, the second tower collapsed. I'm sure you had friends down there and in the academy probably who went to ground zero right away.
Yeah, I mean, so we had different posts in the days to follow, whether we were directing traffic, whether we were at the morgue, whether we were at the landfill, whether we were at the site. We were all over the place. As recruits, you're the cheapest labor out there. So we were sprinkled throughout the city how we were needed. I spent most of my days directing traffic around the site. A lot of it was just standing around. But there was one day that I'll never forget. That's stuck in my mind. It was my partner and I had checked in at the academy. We mustered up. We got our assignments, and our assignment for that day was hop on a city bus. They had all the MTA city buses lined up outside the police academy on 20th Street when it was there. It was on 20th between 2 and 3. If I remember right. And we hopped on the city bus. It dropped us off down and around the ground zero. And we were told to check in with the highest ranking person we could find, let them know we were from the academy, because it wasn't clear enough that we were wearing our rookie gray uniforms. But we did. We were standing in front of One Liberty Plaza. There was, at the time, there was a Burger King located across the street. And that's where we would pick up our masks and all our gear. We were standing there and somebody yells, "The building's coming down," or something to that effect. What it really was wind blowing glass and the glass falling. But somebody yells this. So she and I start running. And that morning I had broken my baton holder, because I did have that. And I wrapped the end string around my duty belt just to secure it. So as we're running, my right leg is hitting my baton. The baton is hitting the leg, popping back up and smacking me in the face. And then it would come back down. And as my knee would hit it again, it would come back up and hit me. So we ran. I was getting beaten up by the baton. We finally just stopped running because, well, the building didn't come down. And if it had, we were far enough away. We both stood there looking at each other, catching our breaths. And we found the phone in the soot by our feet. We grabbed it. And I know I did. I think that I just found the victim's phone, and it rang. So we answered it, and it was another cop. "You found my phone. Where are you?" Thank God. So a few minutes later, cop comes running up, grabs a phone, says thanks, and off she goes. And that was it. It was just back down to checking in and telling them that we were from the academy and whatever you needed us to do. But that's how that morning started. That's how many of the days transpired while we were out there. And then it was right back to the academy and like nothing happened, and finish up with our education so we can graduate.
Wow. That is pretty surreal. How far away was she, or how close was she when that happened? Because, it can't be, I'm sure she wasn't 5 or 10 feet away, right? She was probably, was it blocks or was it?
What are you asking?
Found a cell phone? So when you found that cell phone?
I don't know where she was, but we had stopped running, found the phone, and a few minutes after we answered it, because she called, I guess, to see if somebody found the phone, we did. And she just came running up because we told her where we were. I had a look because, I wasn't a city kid, so I didn't know where I was. Told her. A couple minutes later, she shows up, grabs the phone, says thank you, and off she went. Thankfully, it wasn't a victim's phone, but I believed it was.
That would have been a hard phone call to take. Good thing it was just a PD. Got the phone blown out of their whatever hand or... That's wild, though. Even that, because, you were far enough away, but still have that kind of power to launch. Did that shape your career as a police officer?
I wouldn't say that. In the short answer, I guess, would be yes. This might sound strange. I'm grateful in a sense that I was... And many people might not understand why I would say this, but I'm grateful that I was on the job, and that was my introduction, because of the appreciation and the experience. As terrible as it was, I'm happy that I was on the job and not still in school when it happened, because it did shape. It shaped a lot, and now the coming years collectively really shaped who I am, but that's how it started. My police career started on 9/11. And it did play its role in the years that followed.
No, it's they say, tragedy shapes us into the people we want to be. And that day shaped not even just people in New York, but people around the world, and it changed their lives forever. That day, I had no idea it would change my life either, and it did. It completely changed my life. Not that day, but it was 8 years later, and getting sent to Afghanistan, and going, "What in the world? Why am I going over there 8 years later?" But excited to do so.
Right.
So your career started that day. 9/11 was really to start your career. But your family, you couldn't get a hold of your family during this time. And you being a police officer, I'm sure, were you married at the time, or was she your girlfriend?
No, so we met in the Navy. We met when I was still in service, and I know you appreciate that. We connected on that. Maybe you'll get into that later. Just a really interesting connection. And then we had, I actually proposed the day I graduated the academy. So she was my fiance at the time.
Oh, I'm sure she was worried sick. We just had a terrorist attack, and here is my husband out there somewhere. How was that first interaction when you guys got to talk? Because I'm sure cell phones were down. I mean, trying to get through was nearly impossible.
Oh, absolutely. And that day, along with every other day, was really long. We really just had enough time to get home, shower, and then turn around and go back. I lived in Long Island at the time, so I would my normal commute process was get to Penn Station, get on a train on the Long Island Railroad, get to at the time it was a Hicksville train station. I get off the train station. I'd either walk back to my parents' house where I lived at the time, or I was parked at the parking garage and I would drive. So it was a long process. So we really didn't have a lot of time for those weeks that followed. It was just, hey, what do you need? I'd come home, probably stinking, dirty, and it was showered and, get rest and turn back around and do it again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the commute. I hear a lot about New Yorkers, and their commutes to work are almost like a movie, essentially, because how many different aspects you got to do to get to work. It depends on where you live, right? It's not like in San Diego, you can work right down the street and walk right down the street. Not typical the case unless you live in downtown New York, right?
Yeah, traffic and commute in New York is traumatic all by itself. Especially living on the island. Yeah, there's nothing that's 15 minutes.
No, nothing.
If you're commuting from Long Island into the city or the 5 boroughs, nothing takes more than 45 minutes. My commute from Long Island to downtown Brooklyn, where I worked my whole career, was on average hour and a half one way. So
wow.
There's many cops that feel that same pain.
Wow. That is remarkable. I've never been to New York. I do plan on going there one day to experience it and say I did it. But I don't know. With the state of things kind of going right now, it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies to even go to New York, to even think about going to New York. But so that kind of shaped the way you how people perceived you after that. 9/11, everybody came together. The community was there. You backed each other up. How long after did that start to change?
Interesting. There are multiple events that happened following 9/11 as well. There was the blackout. I forgot what year it was. I want to say it was 2006. I could be wrong.
What do you mean the blackout? What happened during the blackout? What caused the blackout?
So I don't remember exactly what caused the blackout, but if your listeners, Google the blackout of, I believe it was 2006. If not, I'm not far off. I had gotten on that. We finished our shift. I got on the LIRR to go back home, and everything shut off. We were just sitting there waiting. And as fairly new cops as well. This looks like a good overtime opportunity. So we grabbed a ride right back to the precinct, and we were there for days because the majority of the East Coast lost power. And I bring that up because that event and others really helped. I mean, it was still the air was still good with police. Things then started to change. Things would pop up in the media and whatnot, and there was highs and lows. But 2020, the pandemic, the perception of police with the public really took a shift, and a lot of folks say, "Oh, you retired because of everything that was going on." I know I just had really good timing. I'm glad I left when I did. I didn't leave because of it, but I was fortunate that I had left at that time, and glad I did.
Yeah, it's really sad to see what has happened in the law enforcement community. I mean, you guys, our hands are tied. And, I don't know that I'm in California, I'm in San Diego, and same thing here. They've tied the hands of our PD. And New York, I'm sure it's, if not the same, probably worse. And just also the community, man. The community is it's just a big, huge divide. And it sucks that we have to have such a traumatic event happen for people to come back together and say, hey, we're here. Why? I don't understand that. I don't understand the mentality of it. I've thought about it. I've kind of kept going back and saying, where did this happen? Where did this change? When did this shift of authority take place where people are like, no, we ain't putting up with authority. We ain't putting up with what police officers say. I don't know if it's just the age of social media. I mean, what do you think? Where do you think that shift took place?
Well, one, I agree that social media definitely has played an enormous role in the shift. However, when people stop looking at one another as a fellow human and looking at them as against their ideology or against their belief, that's where things go wrong. We're all human. We all breathe the same way. And if we, I relate it back to cops, right? We're cops we're human beings that happen to be cops. And when we forget that that's who we are at our core first, that's who we are. We're human beings. When we start identifying as the role we play or the party we're on, whatever, what team we're playing for, and look at anyone who is opposite to that as the enemy, that's a problem. We're still human. My partner for a long time in cold case, we're totally opposite sides of the spectrum politically and in many other ways. But I laid down my life for him because we looked at each other as fellow brothers. We don't have to agree with one another. But I respected his different opinion. And that's not happening today. And when that doesn't happen, you don't have to agree. But you could respect the fact that somebody else is just as passionate about their view as you're passionate about yours. Yours may be better, right? But just sharing that we all have that right to be passionate about our views. And again, when we stop looking at each other as fellow humans, problems happen.
Yeah, we've lost the art of having a conversation about differences. It's completely shattered. It's almost you can't even almost be friends anymore because I blame social media. That social media is a fucking devil, man. That social media has created the biggest divide I have ever seen in this country. And I'm young, man. I'm only 41. And I'm scared of what's going to happen in the future. Because if we're already this divided, I mean, hell, what's going to bring us back together? What's going to make us say, whoa, hey, how come we're not actually having conversations anymore? How come we hate each other? This isn't America. This is not what the foundation was built upon. Going back to 9/11, do you, as you see, and I'm sure you've watched as many videos as I have about the towers falling, Do you think it was just those planes hitting, or do you think there was other things that happened, like, there were secondary charges?
Well, to the quick answer to your question is no. Actually, believe it or not, I don't watch anything. I don't like to. I didn't personally know anyone that died. I wound up knowing people as the years followed that had perished. I didn't personally, but I didn't have to feel. I'll be honest with you and your listeners. Anytime it was ever on any of the documentaries, I'd get very emotional, right? And I'd start crying. I purposely avoid any shows, movies about that. So no, I don't watch anything, nor I didn't watch any buff cop shows either. I stay away. I stayed away from all of that. So I didn't watch it. But you know what? Too many people were lost. However it might have happened, that's not for me to know. I know that 2 planes flew into those 2 buildings. And again, what happened, elsewhere on that day, does it really matter anything after that? At the end of the day, too many people died. And I did feel that burn to jump back into the military at that time. But I had a budding young family starting, and they actually called. They said, because I was in inactive reserves, you know what I'm talking about. I said, "You interested in going back in?" Now, if I wasn't in the police academy and my family wasn't starting, I might have said absolutely. But I'd have to leave the academy, leave the police department, and I didn't want to do that. I was passionate about becoming a cop, so I chose not to do that. But they tried. They sent letters. They called. Do you want to come back? And I didn't, but I had that burn. I wanted to go back. That's all that really mattered at that point. I didn't care what the theories were behind it, but I knew people died, and you share that same passion.
Yeah, I mean that's the same way. It's you never know what really the truth is, because government, unfortunately, I don't think will ever give us a real answer on what happened. I have watched videos of it, not many videos, but I've watched videos of it. Movies, yeah, not so much. It was. I think it's just too close. I'm not a big movie guy anyway, but I like military movies. But movies about that was just too close for me. And watching it minutes after it happened on duty, and then what transpired years later, was like, man, it's too much. I haven't watched a video in years, probably before I left, 2008. But going that, it shaped me to who I am today. Going to war actually shaped me into being a man, not joining the military. Because I don't think the Navy is really going to make a man out of you. Those posters lie back in the day. Yeah. But you joined the Navy, man, right? So you went to the Navy before you were PD.
Yeah, I did. I was I work at a lot of Marines, my organization, and they probably find it hard to believe. I had a good friend from high school, Tony, that I used to work out with. He was joining the Marines. We used to go to the park, Eisenhower Park in Long Island. We'd work out with the Marines, the recruiters. I think it was Saturday or Sunday mornings. And I was before the age I needed my parents' signature still. And I'll never forget a recruiter on the phone with my mom and actually getting loud with her, trying to get her to sign for me to join, because I was still that age. And that was the moment I was like, nope, Navy. Right. I had enough. Was joining the Navy. And he's like, if you join under me, he was, obviously you go in E1. He got E2 because he got me to join. So we were in boot camp together. I was in E1, he was in E2 in boot camp. And it was that moment where I was like, forget the Marines, join the Navy. My uncle, my godfather was in the Navy. My dad is a Vietnam Army veteran. I said, I'm going to go Navy. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, it's interesting how people actually, make that decision on which one they want to go. Some people just want to be Marines or want to be door kickers. And, Man, Godspeed, man. Love them. Love those guys. Me, I went through a rationale where I was like, I don't know what the branch I'm going to go into. And then my sister was married to a Navy guy, lieutenant commander. So he started talking to me about the Navy. I thought about going Marines or Army, but he was really pressuring me to go Navy. And what sold me was to see the world. That's what really sold me. And I was enamored by some of the stuff he was showing me. I was like, let's go Navy. Let's go Navy. But shortly after, I went to Norfolk, Newport News, Virginia, and Norfolk. Wow, man, this is not where I wanted to go in the Navy. I wanted to see places. My ship was in dry dock, and we just got it finished, and we moved it to Norfolk, and we were leaving September 21st of 2001, going around the Horn and coming up to San Diego. We were leaving Newport News. We were leaving Norfolk, Virginia, and going around South America and coming up and moving the ship to San Diego 10 days after 9/11. And it got delayed, I think, a couple of days. Then we ended up making the move anyway. But we were supposed to go to Brazil, Peru, and Chile, and all those got canked. We didn't get to see any of those. But we were definitely bummed because of security risk. Yeah. And not knowing what I knew now, but there's a lot of terrorist activity that goes on in some of those countries. So I can understand why they would be like, well, okay, we're not going to go to these countries right now. So you joined the Navy, and how long did you do? Did you do your 4 and get out?
So at the time, I did my 3 and got out. I had a 3-year minimum commitment, and there were guys that after I joined, they had switched it at that time to a 2-year commitment. So there were guys that were getting out before me that had joined after me. So I did 3, and it's funny, I was in Newport News too. I stayed on the Fort Eustis Army Base when the Roosevelt was in dry dock and in Newport News. I started same thing. I started my career needle gunning paint, chipping on the ship, thinking this is bullcrap. I don't want to do this. Maybe I want to join a different branch. So I'll never forget. I'm still friends with him today. I went to see the department chaplain. I'm like, I'm living on an Army base. I'm chipping paint all day long. I'm working in the mess decks. I don't want to do this. He's like, okay, it's totally fine. You don't have to. I said, okay, good. I'd like to get out and do something else. I said, okay, well, you can go AWOL. You can get pregnant. Or you can finish your time. I said, well, I'm not going to go AWOL. I'm not getting pregnant. I said, I guess I got to finish my time. And that was it. And we pulled out of dry dock, again, like you, Norfolk, Virginia. And we did our med cruise. But I did 3. I did 3 years. And I got out and worked in the civilian sector for just a little bit of time. I was on military deferment. So because the police department, said, you're ready to start the academy. I was deployed. They put me on deferment. I got out. I actually lived in Virginia for a minute. I took a lot of the entrance exams and physicals for the Norfolk City Police Department. Passed. I made the decision. I'm going to go back home. And then, lucky or unlucky enough, 9/11 class was my class. Yeah.
Well, it probably gave you, like you said, man, it gave you a different perspective in law enforcement. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to hear the rest of Jason's story. But listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the alert button because it is going to be an explosive rest of the episode. And the show wouldn't be made possible without our sponsors, Red, White, and Badass Brew, and Go Man Go Productions. Your vision is our mission because we see it too.
baby, and I can't make a move. Like a child, a star for love that flows to the sea. Baby, if you run away, baby, if you leave, I'm so in love with you, girl. You make me feel brand new. Come on, give it up to me. Let me take care of you. I know that your mama said I'm gonna make you cry all
night. So, you guys, you missed it. It has been one heck of a story so far. Jason, Navy veteran, also NYPD, and he got his start of his career on 9/11. That was the true start of his NYPD career. And now we're going to be talking a little bit about something different in your career. Being a cold case homicide detective. That's pretty wild. I don't know if I've ever even heard of. I've never met one, I don't think. I don't even think I know somebody. And then first of all, are you good talking about that?
I'm good talking about it unless it has to do with a case that has not yet gone to trial. I'll be a little limited with details.
So how was your career as an NYPD officer, man? So once you recruit, 9/11 happened. How did it progress? Did you start off with a vision of saying, hey, I want to be a gang detective, to changing your mind along the way?
Actually, yes, not a gang detective, though. I wanted to work in special victims. So I wanted to work investigating cases where children were the victims. And that really kind of changed after I had my daughter and my kids. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. It was a little too much. But I started out regular patrol. I had a steady sector. Downtown Brooklyn. I had a partner, my partner Kevin and I. We had steady sector Charlie. I went from there to what was called a conditions unit. So it was plain clothes at the time. We would do everything from, quality of life offenses. And then from there, I went to what was called a crime team.
Hold on a second. You said quality life offenses?
Quality life. So public intoxication, stuff like that. Quality of life offenses. Yeah. Misdemeanor down, violations, stuff like that. And then that transitioned over to a crime team, which was felonies, all felonies, right? So robberies, burglaries, assaults. From there, I went into the detective bureau. I got to the 84th Precinct Detective Squad in 2000 and see, you know what? I think it's probably old age. My fried brain. But yeah. I then went to the detective squad, and in the NYPD, you work 18 months in an investigative track. You're appointed your detective. You're given your detective shield. So I did 18 months with the 84th Precinct Detective Squad, got my shield, and I spent about over 10 years in the squad there, investigating everything from, again, robberies, burglaries, larcenies, assaults. I ended investigating financial crimes, fraud, identity theft. And then I was fortunate enough to get pulled over to the cold case homicide squad, which literally was across the street on Gold Street, through a mutual friend, knew the CO of the unit at the time. He said, hey, I met my buddy at a party. He said, he wants you to come in for an interview. I said, you're out of your mind. There's no way I'm getting over a cold case, right? Dinosaurs worked there. I was still job standard, a baby. Went for the interview, and I was there. I think it was 6 months later. I found myself the youngest kid in the squad, in the cold case squad. At any point in time, there was in the teens to like 30 people in the cold case squad citywide. I got there of 2015. I know that. That's 2015, the year I got there. And I spent the rest of my career there.
Wow. What changed? I mean, obviously having kids is going to change your perspective on life itself. They do that. They just have that little magical moment with you and going, fuck, okay, yeah, I probably don't want to do that now. Now I've got this little guy or gal in your arms. But what drew you to the victims unit? What was the appeal there when you first started in the PD?
I just had, I guess, the same passion about that I had in cold case. I felt that the most vulnerable was where I felt like I wanted to devote my time, right? The most vulnerable, which are children, our most prized possession. And, switching over to wanting to investigate cold cases, homicides, that's your next most vulnerable in that they can no longer speak for themselves. There's nobody else to speak for them. You're their voice. And with cold case, the buck stopped there, right? It had already been investigated. It had gone cold. And it was, you're the last stop. And I love that. It's the hunt of man that thought they could take another human's life and get away with it. There was nothing more invigorating than that. And I worked.
How did you crack these cold cases? Like, I think we've seen, unsolved mysteries. For one, I'm guilty. I've watched it. Okay. But it's, and then, I'll talk to you about a TV show here in a minute. But unsolved mysteries, like I've watched it and it's always appealing to me, like how you go from taking a 30-year-old case and breaking that thing wide open. So tell me about one of the cases that really stuck with you, if you don't mind.
No, I appreciate you asking me. Your first question, how do you crack those cases? You crack it with amazing colleagues, right? You don't do it by yourself. It's a team effort. And I worked with some of the most amazing detectives in the police department in cold case. One of the cases that have always stuck with me, it's funny, I initially wanted to investigate cases with children, and then I wound up having most of my cold cases involving children. So I didn't avoid it. So one case in particular was the case of Rashawn Brazel, and I'll talk about Rashawn Brazel because it has been declined by the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. The prosecution has been declined at this point to the unfortunately for every detective that worked on that case long before I got it, and for Rashawn's mom and family. You could look it up. Your listeners could look it up. I've posted about it. But that case stuck with me because I got so involved and so close to the family. Desire is my family now. Mom is my family. And it was the case. He's a young teenager, and he went missing on Valentine's Day. It was 2006, and he was found shortly after that in multiple places throughout the city. Not to get too graphic for listeners, but he was found in multiple locations, and some of him were not found. That case was investigated for many years, and I was new in the cold case squad, and I was looking at that case. If you Google New York City's most notorious unsolved homicides, that's one of a handful that pop up. And I actually printed out that article and I had it stapled in my cubicle. A friend of mine, Richie, was retiring. He said, "Hey, I want you to look at this case of Rashawn Brazel." And I said, "It's funny because I was interested in that case." He goes, "I want you to take it when I retire." Now, each precinct has a detective squad, and they investigate a homicide with another homicide detective from a larger homicide bureau, right? So there's Brooklyn North Homicide, Brooklyn South Homicide, and so on and so forth. That, if it's not solved, it then goes cold. And a homicide can always be prosecuted. There's no statute of limitations for murder. So I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I want this. I want to definitely run with this case." He says, "Yeah, but you got to meet mom first." So yeah, that's fine. That's no problem. He says, "No, if she needs to approve of you before you take the case." I was like, okay. And we met one morning in downtown Brooklyn for breakfast, and it was a straight up interview. I was intimidated. She's tough. And she asked me, she said, I just recently had talked about this. She said to me, she said, why do you want my son's case? And do you have a problem with the fact that he was gay? And I said, Ms. Brazel, I don't. I said, he's a human being, and somebody thought it was okay to take his life. And I said, with all due respect to you, he's my boss. And I will answer to you, but I answer to him. And lucky for me, she allowed me to have her son's case. And again, grateful that we were able to put a lot of the pieces together and get it to a point where we secured an indictment and then a subsequent arrest. And the individual who I won't name, he's in jail now for the murder of another young teenager, thankfully. So he's never getting out, or at least I hope he never gets out.
Did he do the same thing to that teenager as he did to Rashawn?
Similar, strangled her and put her in laundry bags and dumped her on the side of a building. And it was a very close proximity to where Rashawn was living. And I was investigating that case. I was assisting in that case with my partner, Evelyn. And he was a suspect in that case for various reasons. And in looking at his history and his whole life, which is, we can get into that. That's one of the benefits. Most people might think it's a detriment to an investigation, but it's actually a benefit because now I'm able to see a larger portrait of somebody's existence, and that's going to help me understand them. And we had some connections, and then it transpired from there, and we wound up seeing that he was responsible for both. And to be honest, probably others that we exhausted ourselves, looking into, but definitely those two. Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever get a confession of why he did it?
For shots, no. But plenty, multiple statements that, were of value in the investigation. You don't always get that slam dunk, I did it. But you give me enough outside of that to convince me that you did. I don't need you to say it. There's plenty of evidence that say you did, whether you want to be honest and tell me you did or not.
Sure. I mean, you deal with the bad people long enough, you know how to read them like a book.
Yeah, trust me, life's crazy.
I bet. So cold cases, you felt good enough that, man, I had a conviction. DA said, nope, not enough evidence on this one. Is that why they turned it down?
Oh no, brother. There was plenty of evidence on this one. They declined prosecution on Rashawn's case for pure laziness. And listen, I'm not on the job anymore, so I have no problem with calling it the way it is. There are some amazing district attorneys that worked on this case, most specifically in the forensics unit. There were some great detectives that worked on this case. There was some great evidence. Listen, there was enough to secure an indictment. And I don't know what the real reason is. I'll never know what the mind is of the folks that make these decisions. But the person who took Rashawn's life is in jail, never getting out. Does that play into it? Does that play into not moving forward with Rashawn's case? I don't know. But a judge and jury decide the end result. It's the district attorney's job to present the case the best they can, to the best of their ability, with the evidence that has been compiled and the work that has been done, and leave it in the hands of a judge and jury. They decided not to do that. They decided to make that decision prior to that last step, and did a disservice to not only Miss Brazel and family, but to Rashawn.
Well, and also you guys too. The amount of time you spent on working on this cold case to get it to that point, to get the indictment, was, I'm sure, is just a slap in the face all the way fucking around with these guys. And here you go. Yeah, he committed another murder, but that's a whole separate case. That's not the same case. And the DA, I don't understand some of these decisions that are coming out. And especially what scares me now is how we are handling our one, justice system, but two, the people who are in jail. Because we would look at it and go, yep, this guy's never getting out. The next way you know, this guy might be getting the fuck out. But if he had that other conviction, it would solidify his stay in the best hotel that he deserves. But I get it, man. Laziness, or whatever it is. Who knows? Is that I kind of hate asking actually this question. Does that kind of haunt you a little bit today, or have you kind of like, okay, let that go?
No, it's a fair question. I don't know where you stand or where folks stand. If faith plays into it for folks, but it does for me. And I'm not in control, my friend. And I'll do the best I can with what I have. And ultimately, these decisions are made by God. And I just, you asked me about a slap in the face, and am I happy? Absolutely not. But what came out of that investigation was a beautiful thing. It was answers for Mom. It was, I now know for Mom. It was new relationships. It was, so much has come as a result of Rashawn. The difference, it's all the perspective that the lens in which we look through. And, this plays a lot into the mental health space, and we can get into that, but it's how are you looking at your situation? Is it going to defeat you? Are you going to let it bury you? Or are you going to use it for growth? I choose to look at the positive. I would never have met Rashawn's amazing family. But I did. And Rashawn is still making a difference well after death. That's awesome. That's what I choose to focus on. So no, nothing else can take that away. If it does, you allowed it to. So for me, I'm fine. Am I happy? I'm not happy. But I'm not going to sit and sulk about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the hardest things to let go of these, you kind of, I wouldn't say defeats. It's not really defeat, because how you just described this, it's really more a positive thing. And his life shaped some lifelong bonds. And that's beautiful. But PD has a huge issue, and now we're getting into that mental health aspect of it. PD has this huge mental health issue because I don't think people know how to cope with what's going on. Being a police officer is not an easy job. You're dealing with the worst of the worst day in and day out. How do you combat that mentally? And have you always had the same outlook in your career? Or is this a newer outlook that you found maybe like post-career?
Oh, my friend, this was not an outlook I had my whole career. The reason I'm in the space I'm in today is because I didn't have that outlook my whole career. So yeah, I'm tired of seeing my fellow, and it's not just cops, it's first responders, right? It's veterans. It's larger than just cops. Being a cop is what I know, right? But it does seep into the service professions. But no, it's not something that this is not a way of life that I always had, a way of thinking I always had. It's what led me to being in this space. I had to crash. I had to hit rock bottom. I had to almost lose everything that I was working for to realize what I was working for. And that was the most important thing in my life, not what I was doing.
And what was that rock bottom?
But how I was doing what I was doing was damaging what I was doing it for.
Yeah. And how was that? What were you doing? And what was it, a person you were damaging? Or or was it, your post-life PD career going into tubes?
Yeah. So not a person. Everything that my life touched, I was damaging, right? Whether it was a relationship with my kids, whether it was a relationship with my wife, whether it was family members and relationships with them, my brothers, whether it was through work and folks that I was engaging with at work and how I was acting. It was everything that I was touching. My behaviors, my bad coping skills, right? My coping skill of choice was my isolation island with liquor, right? I used that to escape. I used that to kind of just drown out the noise and just hang out in my own world.
That's a huge that, and you touched on something that is extremely massive. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than the industries we are in. It's bigger than the career choices that we've chosen. We have a epidemic going on with suicide across all military, law enforcement, firefighters, nurses, EMT, just regular civilians. The mental health in the U.S. is out of control. And one thing people are saying is just like, hey, take some drugs, take some drugs, take some drugs. I'm not a big drug guy. You give me some pills and you give me some medication, I'm a complete zombie, man. I can't function. I'm done. It takes me hours in the morning to get out of that funk. But now being healthy, like you are today, what road did you go down to seek you getting back to healthy, getting back that mental health, that positive mental health?
Yeah. So initially I thought, okay, well, I need to try to work on my marriage, and I need to try to work on the relationship with my kids. And I need to try to do things differently at work. And I need to try to communicate with those in my life that I'm arguing with in a different way. And it just never worked. And I realized that I had to work on me first. And if I didn't work on me first, nothing else would get better. And that took a little while, a little trial and error, a couple of smacks in the face, but it was okay. I need to work on me. What don't I know, right? I always say the questions we ask ourselves are the most important. What questions am I asking myself? Who am I surrounding myself with? What am I listening to? Who am I speaking to? Who's influencing me? Who's challenging me to be better me? If I'm not getting challenged, if I'm not in the suck, right, or the struggle and learning from it, well, I need to be doing something different, right? And that's what I started doing. I didn't know where to start. In the space that I'm in now, when I talk to first responders, I don't know what the first step is, they say. You made it. You're experiencing the first step at this moment, because the only reason why the conversation we're having exists is because you made the first step. You don't have to know what number 2, number 3, number 4 is. Live in number 1 right now. Enjoy it, right? You made the first step. You said, I don't know something. I don't have all the answers. Let me try to figure it out, the curiosity. And that's what keeps us alive. Staying curious, right? Hey, what don't I know? How can I maybe get better? But I'll, as cops, and I'll tell you personally, as cops, we have the answers, right? Either we're arresting you, either we're giving you a summons, either we're warning you, we're taking a report, right? This is a definitive conclusion to our existence in that role. Well, when there's no definitive conclusion to what we're struggling with in our own personal lives, that's a problem. How come we don't have that definitive conclusion? I don't have the answer. So it must be my fault. It must be my problem, because I could figure out that conclusion to everything else I do in my role, but I can't figure it out now. And then at that moment, too many of us stop being curious about figuring it out. Now, that's not everything. That's not 100% of the problem, but I definitely think it's part of the problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is. It is. And I like how you really frame that curiosity is what keeps people alive, because that is a very true testament. Because the time you really stop being curious, that's probably at your time you're most dangerous.
Yeah.
And then that's when bad things can happen. What do you... So physical fitness, man, I think is a key role in mental health. I had a trainer tell me, I could probably get more people off of medication if they would actually do the right thing, if they eat right and get physically fit. And at first, I'm like, no, man, that is that easy? Like, it's not that easy for one. But two, I never really had a big workout regimen. I was just naturally just here, nice, genes. I guess, thank my parents for good genes, but I didn't have to work out all too hard. But I was never really happy with myself physically. And so then I got on a workout program and consistent. It's not even been that long. And I'm already seeing the side effects of like, wow, man, this has really changed because it's changing my perspective on my whole day. It's giving me that one positive. It's giving me my win. I call it my win because that is a win. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I go work out. That's my win.
I love that.
You got to focus on a win. Let's get that win right away. That way, if you stack up a couple of L's during that day, shit, man, you start off with a win. You're already high on top of it. And physical aspect, physical fitness is extremely important to our mental health. Would you not agree? And
I can't agree with you more. How you think is how you feel. How you feel is how you act. And you affect how you think by what you put in your body. Now, let me just preface with, I did not always believe that to be true after I polished off a dozen Dunkin', right? After I consumed stuff I shouldn't be consuming. You're in those 30s and you're like, yeah, I could bounce back. That's no problem. And then you start to get older and you're like, well, I'm not bouncing back so quick. And that's part of what I surrounded myself with. It was, I bit of a bookworm, and I started reading about, what certain things that you ingest, whether food or liquid, and how it affects your brain and how it affects your chemicals and how that affects how you feel. And if you don't feel well, I was a lot larger than I am now. And I was getting sick often. I was having issues because of my diet or lack thereof. And it was just like an afterthought. I wasn't prevalent in my mind or in the forefront of, hey, this could possibly fix or help mitigate some of the things that I'm experiencing. And yeah, that took it. That's always a journey, right? Not fall off every once in a while and eat something I shouldn't eat. Like last weekend I ate too much garbage, but it's like, you know what? At least it's in my mind now. All right, let's get back after it this week. But it's a constant journey. But yes, to answer the question, 100% plays into it.
I say knowledge is power. I never had the knowledge of how to eat properly. Like I thought, hey, I eat chicken and rice, man. I'm eating properly. Like that's not wrong. I was not eating properly for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I fall off the wagon too, man. There's this place called Friendly's here in San Diego, man. And these burgers, you have that?
I don't know if it's the same. You said Friendly's?
Yeah, it's called Friendly's.
It might be a different, but we had the same name of a place on the East Coast.
I don't know. I have to look them up, but they have 2 locations in San Diego, and this thing is just, oh man, the burger. It started out as a pizza place, a pizza parlor. Then I guess they just threw a burger out there, and the burger just took off. But this burger, man, is just, it's delicious. That's my cheat, man. I go there. I hit that up, and you can't get one. You have to get 2.
Of course.
You got to get 2 of those. But it's okay to do that when you get to a certain level of fitness. It's okay to have that. You can manage that into your diet. And it's actually not as bad for you as I originally thought. Because education. My trainer has taught me how to, hey, look, you have to, if you're going to do something like that, you've got to have some transition somewhere during that day. I'm like, wait, I can have that and still, get some lose some lbs and get some wins. He's like, hell yes, you can. So it's amazing. Now, spreading the word about being physical fit and about getting into fitness, I think it's a huge one in service industry across the world, not just in the United States, across the world, but especially police officers. Man, you guys are having a very physically demanding job. Not only that, but you got to fight some people sometimes. I mean, jiu-jitsu or some kind of Krav Maga should definitely be a regimen in PD's lives, right? A regular regimen in PD's lives.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple of things. You talk about you start off with a win, so to help at those L's throughout the day, and that's just it. Like, make more deposits than because you're going to get those withdrawals. People are going to take from you, right? You're going to take from yourself, maybe through a couple of missteps here and there. But if you've packed those wins in, those little wins, you don't need big ones. You get the little ones, because then it'll help absorb those losses, and you don't overdraft at the end of the day, right? Because they're going to happen. You can try to avoid it all you want. It's not going to work, right? So as long as you can counterbalance that, it's good. But yeah, I think departments are starting to work more towards the physical side of things. I know the NYPD is. There's a sports unit. There's so many awesome things happening in departments as relative to physical fitness. But absolutely, it's, I write about this analogy about going out on patrol with flip-flops, shorts, and a tank top. Would anybody do that? No, you wouldn't. You know how to be physically prepared with your equipment for your shift, right? Your gun, your mace, your handcuffs, your baton, so on and so forth. Why would you go out in life with flip-flops and shorts and then expect when something happens, you're going to be prepared? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You have to be prepared. So when life does punch you in the face, you're okay. That hurt a little bit. I got the sting, but now you go to your tool belt, right? What do I need for this situation? If you don't have anything built up over time, like a workout routine, like a nutrition regimen, then what are you going to fall back on? You're going to fall back on your old ways, because that's what you know, and that's what's comfortable.
That's 100% it. You have to have that routine. And routine also plays a huge part into this thing. If your day is just willy-nilly waking up whenever and blah, 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 you're stacking some losses already, just not having a routine. You don't have to have every minute segmented out, you know what I mean? But like that morning routine, and I found that one to be my most important things is having that morning routine. And really dialing that in, because that set my tone for the rest of the day. Now it's like, all right, what's life got to throw at me now? Come at me. I'm already got the W, so little losses don't mean so big. But the routine is another key factor into that. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not just the preparation for those losses and being aware that they are going to happen, right? The awareness is important. The preparation is important, but not always thinking this way. But definitely at this point in my life, I like when it gets tough, because that's how I know the good stuff's going to happen, right? When you're in it, when I was in the stressful period on the job, I did not look at it the same way I do now. Now I look at it, all right, it might suck, but what am I taking out of this? What good is going to come from this? This is the juice right here, right? So we don't always want to be in that spot, but if you look at it as, I'm in the spot, that means I'm doing something right. Well, I could be doing something wrong, but it means I'm doing the right thing. I'm getting challenged, right? Maybe folks are pushing me or challenging me. That means I'm moving forward. Right. And during the pandemic, I went through the John Maxwell. Folks know who John Maxwell is. They could look him up. But I got life coach certification through the John Maxwell team, and reading a lot of his books. One of the things he says that I've really adopted is failing's okay as long as you're failing forward. Right. You're going to trip up. You're going to make mistakes. Are you moving forward, or are you again getting buried by those mistakes? And I just yesterday was on the phone with a cop. And we're talking about, past mistakes and how burdensome they are. And I'm like, you know what? A lot of people try to forget their past. I say, don't forget it. Keep it with you. Close enough to teach you, but not close enough where you get tripped up and buried by it. Keep it right behind you. And when you need it, yank it a little closer. And when you're done for whatever lesson you need it, go ahead and let it go, fall back in line, right? Don't try to forget it, because you use it for what you need.
Failing is part of trying. If you're not failing, you're not fucking trying. Just not happening. Just not happening at all. I don't look forward to failure, but when it happens, I learn from it. You can't learn from fear. if you're scared to do something and scared to try, you ain't learning from it. That's holding you back. You falling flat on your face and going, fuck, that hurt. That was wrong. Bad move on my part. Nope, I know not to do that again. It teaches you. Failures are teachable moments. And just like
absolutely.
Maxwell said, falling forward. Because you're falling forward and you're teaching yourself. You're giving yourself that learning lesson. So give me the top 2-3 books, man, that you would recommend reading.
Well, can I do a selfish plug that's not even out yet? It's the book I'm writing with my good friend Barbara called Living Blue. So when it does come out, that'll be one of the ones I have on the list. What other books? Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement by Dr. Gil Martin. That book, it's a small, quick read, but I read that book well after I retired, and learning about the hypervigilance roller coaster and how as first responders, we have those highs and we thrive on those highs, and they happen often. And then we come down. Now we're home, right? We're back to our normalcy and we want to get back up. And then we get back up and we're good. And it's in that in between that's a big struggle. And I didn't know about that. I didn't have any. I had no knowledge or education behind what that really means. I didn't learn a lot of stuff until after I retired. It would have been great on day one. But Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement is good. Counseling Cops is a good book. There's so many. Like I told you, I'm a bookworm. But those are some of my favorite law enforcement books. And I'll bring up the book I'm writing with Barbara again, because I read But I Didn't Say Goodbye with her, that she wrote. And Barbara's mom and dad were both NYPD cops, and her father died by suicide when she was giving birth to her triplets. And I read that book. And you're talking about comfort, right?
Wow.
Before in a sense. And I read that book, and I had an idea, and I was writing, and I said, I asked my wife, what do you think? Should I reach out to her? Because I would like to collaborate. She said, what are you going to lose? She could just tell you no. I was uncomfortable. So I had to push in that uncomfortable zone, right? Get out of my box. By some miracle, she agreed to partner with this guy. And a few years later, we were about to publish our work together. And I say that because it's a lesson in get uncomfortable to get comfortable. When you're uncomfortable, the good stuff can happen. You have to be intentional about finding it. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. But yeah, so those are some of my fan favorites.
When is your work coming out, man? When's your book coming out?
So I'm hoping by mid-October. We are putting the last finishing touches on it. Working on some design elements and last bit of editing. As somebody not in that space, I didn't know there was more than one type of editor. It's been an amazing learning experience because I have an amazing partner in Barbara, and I've learned so much along the way. I'm still learning, and that's another thing too. If you're not learning, you're dying. If you're not doing something new and stretching yourself, then you're going the wrong way. So I'm still learning, but we're mid-October. I'm hoping mid-October. I will definitely let you know when it's available.
Dude, that's amazing. So we're gonna be able to find this book on Amazon, everywhere pretty much, right? Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure. Definitely going to be able to purchase it on Amazon. We are thinking about an audio version at some point, partly because what do we do as first responders? We spend a lot of time sitting around, right? Whether in the ambulance waiting, whether in a patrol car waiting for a job, whether on our really long New York commute home. So I want to be able to give guys and girls an opportunity to absorb it in a space that they're comfortable in, right? I like a paper book. Maybe that's because I'm old, right? I don't read on a tablet or anything like that, but I like to have the paper book, and when I'm done, I put it on the bookshelf. So, but yeah, you'll be able to purchase it on Amazon. Hopefully mid-October.
Well, when it comes out, let me know, man, and we'll do a plug for you, man, and see what we can do about pushing it out there. So, Jason, I want to say thank you for coming on the show, buddy. You are a badass, man. From the day you started your NYPD career until the day that you finished it. And hitting rock bottom is the hardest thing to do. And it's the hardest thing to sit there and say, I need to get the hell out of it instead of staying there and moving on and working on yourself. You said it. You have to work on yourself, and you have to love yourself before you're going to be able to love anybody else. Jason, you're a badass, my friend. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
Feelings mutual, brother.
Thank you, man. So where can we find you at?
I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, website, jasonpalamara.org. So plenty of spots to find me. My social media handles is my name, so it won't be hard.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it. All right. Followers, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the alert button so you know when these badass episodes are coming out. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. If you have a heroic story and you'd like to share it, get in contact with us. Our information's in the bio. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and share. And then I'll see you on the next episode, badasses.